Hey, welcome back to Harvest.247 here on YouTube. We're certainly glad that you decided to make us part of your day, whenever and wherever you're watching from. We'd love for you to just click that subscribe button and head on over to Instagram and Facebook. Check out Harvest.247. We'd love for you to follow and like and all of those types of things. And also, love for you to go check out Behind the Harvest podcast as well, either on Google Play or Apple Podcast. Love for you to do that as well. So other content that you can grab if you enjoy this. So we are in the middle of a series called More to the Story, and we've talked about giving, we've talked about worship, we've talked about just this idea that you're not canceled, God's not done with you yet. So we'd encourage you to go back, watch those videos. And today we're going to talk about this idea of serving. And so I'm going to hop right into the scripture that I'm going to read today, and it starts Matthew 20 through 28. Then the mother of the sons of Zebedee came up to him with their sons, and kneeling before him, she asked him for something. And he said to her, "What do you want?" So this is Jesus talking. She said to him, "Say that these two sons of mine are to sit, one at your right hand and one at your left, in your kingdom." Verse 22, Jesus answered, "You do not know what you're asking. Are you able to drink the cup that I am to drink?" They said to him, "We are able." He said to them, "You will drink my cup, but to sit at my right hand and at my left is not mine to grant, but it is for those for whom it has been prepared by my Father." And when the 10 heard it, they were indignant at the two brothers. But Jesus called them to him and said, "You know that the rulers of the Gentiles lord it over them. So their slave drivers and their great ones exercise authority over them." So this is kind of an important place to stop in the story. Jesus is about to communicate something that is a difference between an earthly kingdom and God's kingdom. He's going to highlight something that says, hey, this kind of one aspect of the way we look at serving is going to separate my kingdom from the earthly kingdom. My kingdom's different from what you know here on earth. And he's about to say that kingdom leaders are not going to be like worldly leaders, because kingdom leaders are going to act differently. And this is what he says, verse 26. "It shall not be so among you," meaning you're not going to lord it over people and exercise authority. "But whoever would be great among you must be your servant. And whoever would be first among you must be your slave. Even as the sons of man came not to be served, but to serve, and to give his life for a ransom for many." So he's saying, listen, in my kingdom, basically saying serving is a get to, not a got to. Serving is one of those things that we get to do. We get to partner with the Lord and advance his kingdom and do his work. No matter what job we have, we get to serve, right? Anytime we discuss a difference in worldly values and kingdom values, we have to unlearn some things that we have and then learn some things. So we have to kind of like reverse engineer or unlearn something and then learn something new. So we're going to do some things that we have to unlearn and things that we learn. So the church, the first thing is that the church is here to both serve you and you serve in it. Verses 25 and 26. Ecclesia is a compound word of two meanings. Ek meaning out of, and kaleo meaning to call. Together, they literally mean to call out and refer to the called out ones or the selected ones. So when we talk about church, we are not talking about a place. We're not talking about a building. We're not talking about even a time of the week that we go to. We're talking about a group of people. And that group of people are the called out ones. In the first century, the word was not a religious word. In fact, it was a political word, referring to those called out of the general populace in order to serve as a civil body or an executive arm. So, even when it's used in a secular form, it is talking about a group of people serving another group of people. So it's this idea that we as the church are called out ones and we're called to serve. Just like Jesus said, he said, the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve and to give his life as a ransom for many. So the call for us as the church is the call for Jesus, and that is to be called out in order to serve and to give our lives so that more people would know about Jesus. So, one of the things that we have to understand is that we have to unlearn that the church is not just here to serve us, but we are here to serve in it. So, it's both. You come to church and you get served, but there's also a responsibility that you serve others while you're in it, or you serve the community while you are in it. And so the balance oftentimes is off. A lot of times we look at church as this is the place to meet my needs. If I don't get called on my birthday, I get upset. If I don't get to do what I want to do, I'm leaving. If I don't get fed, even though the word of the Lord never returns void, I'm leaving. Like, the balance has been off. But what we have to do is we have to unlearn that the church is just here to serve me, and we have to learn that it is here to serve me, but I'm here also to serve in it. Because if the Son of Man came to serve, but not to serve, not to be served, then for sure the called out ones are here to serve, not just to be served, because serving is a get to, not a got to in the kingdom. The second thing we have to kind of unlearn and learn is that the last shall be first. Verses 26, 27, this is kind of servant and slave. Now, in our house, we like to race a lot. Okay, so all of us, we like to race. We have kind of a competitive house. We race home, and we stand at the back door and do V for victory. We race up the stairs. We race to put laundry away. We race. One day, one of our boys finished and was bragging. He was saying, hey, I won. I got in bed first, from night, I won. And one of the other boys said, well, here's the deal. The first shall be last, and the last shall be first. And so now, anytime somebody wins and they're first, whoever is last will look at them and say, yeah, well, the first is last and the last is first, in a way that they can ultimately try to figure out how to win. But that's kind of that's how it is in the kingdom, that the last shall be first and the first shall be last. This idea, this concept that we are to give first before we get. And the one who is actually giving is going to be first, and the one who is first is actually going to be last. It's kind of this weird thing. And we have this idea of servant and slave. So servant is the Greek word is diakonos. A servant agrees to meet the needs of others in exchange for money or as an act of friendship. Slave is doulos. A slave acts under threat or obligation. Serving in the kingdom is both an agreement and an obligation, not a choice. Let's say that again. Serving in the kingdom is both an agreement and an obligation. It is not a choice. It is dual, meaning that we feel obligated to serve Jesus and to serve those around us. And at the same time, it is an agreement that says, as a called out one, that even in the secular society means to serve another group of people, I agree that I'm going to come here and I'm going to invest and I'm going to serve. Therefore, we agree to serve out of a love of others. And at the same time, we are obligated to serve out of a love for God because Jesus came to serve, not to be served. Right? This is why we place a high value on serving. It's what we want to do. We want to try to grow people through the idea of serving. It's why we allow our youth to serve. It's why we allow a bunch of people, try to get as many people to serve as possible. Because one, it is part obligation, but it is part like, hey, it's an offering. But we believe that one of the best ways to grow in your spiritual faith is to get involved in personal ministry, whether it's be serving in greeting or serving in kids or serving in tech or doing whatever. And here's the thing. It's not going to be perfect, because we're people. So sometimes it's going to get messy. Sometimes it's not going to be exactly what you want it to be. Sometimes you're not going to be as communicated with as much, or sometimes we're going to forget something. Why? Because we're people. But that's why it's so important to understand that the first shall be last and the last shall be first, because we want to come in with an attitude that says, I get to partner with Jesus. I get to partner with my brother or sister across the aisle in order to serve Jesus. It's not I got to do it. But it's a get to, not a got to, because we have this heart that says, I want to serve in the way that Jesus served. I want to serve as a called out one. And that's what we want to do. I had a friend of mine who felt called to plant a church. It's a great story. He's like, I'm going to plant a church. I'm going to preach to thousands. He was talking to his dad, and his dad said, did you make your bed? He said, what? He said, did you make your bed? He said, nope. He said, make your bed for 6 months and then call me back. That's what it's about. Faithful with a little and trusted with much. Serving is a get to, not a got to. And finally, kingdom serving requires personal sacrifice, verse 28. The King of Kings and the Lord of Lords came to serve, not to be served, and he gave his life as a ransom for many. That Jesus' whole purpose on this earth was the cross. That was it. Everything that he did led to the cross, and then his ultimate resurrection, so that all who would believe in him would have life, and have life to the full here, and have life everlasting in the next life. So Jesus modeled serving by giving his life. And what Jesus models is there is a sacrifice to serving. That serving is hard because it means that we have to lay out in our life down our wants, our desires, our thoughts, our time, and our talent. We have to lay that at the feet of Jesus and say, you guide and direct how you would want me to use these, how you would want me to steward these, not necessarily how I think or believe I should steward them. Kingdom serving requires personal sacrifice. When I was in college, I got to interview Dan Cathy, Chick-fil-A, and I asked him about the principles of leadership. And that was kind of the whole point of my paper, the principles of leadership. He said, one night his dad asked someone to mop the bathroom floor upon closing at the original Chick-fil-A in Georgia. That person asked, why don't you do it? Something kind of bold to ask your boss. Truett said, I will never ask you to do what I am unwilling to do or have not done. And Dan told me, he said his dad would cook, his dad would change out the salt and pepper shakers, clean bathrooms, work the register, mop the floor, clean the tables, and he would do every job that he asked others to do. Why? Because he understood that he was still called to serve, even though he was the owner of Chick-fil-A. And that his service was to someone much higher than himself. If he was going to model Jesus, he had to embody that serving is a get to and not a got to. He had to model that he's here to both serve and serve in it, be served and serve in it. He had to model the last shall be first, and he had to model that kingdom serving requires personal sacrifice. So serving is a get to, not a got to. It is both a choice and it is an obligation. It is both this thing that we do as an agreement, and it's something that we do out of this obligation to Jesus. And the amazing thing about it is not only do we get to serve others, but we also get to grow in Christ at the same time. So my encouragement would be this: if you're not serving anywhere and you're looking, please let us know. We'd love to get you involved in some way, shape, or form. And serving is a get to, not a got to. And I promise you this, you're going to grow more than you ever have, because one of the best ways to grow is getting involved in personal ministry. We'll see you next time.